Hello and welcome to the first look of this thing here. This is the new Vista kit, the Nebula Micro from Eachine. Now I have done a lot with the DJI HD system. I'm a fan of the technology. I'm not a fan of the way it's quite a closed system, but so it's quite fun to see other people coming out with kits like this. Now obviously there has been the Cadix system which has been kicking around for a while, but now Eachine have brought one out, and this thing looks a little bit different. And in fact, if I hold the camera up to the camera, you can see the camera itself actually looks far more conventional. Well, kind of conventional, because you can either get the camera or you can get it like I've got it here, which is where you get the air unit light, which is the DJI unit, and then Eachine have added their own camera onto it. Now I've had this just for a couple of days and just wanted to kind of show you it and show you some example footage, because the big difference with this, as far as I can see, is the lens. It gives you a much wider field of view, and I'll show you what that looks like. I'll compare it to a standard camera that you tend to find on the standard DJI HD stuff. So while I unbox the Vista kit Nebula Micro, again I've got the version here that comes with the air unit light, the antenna and everything that you need to get it working. And when you look on the website you will see that there's two specifications, one for analog and one for digital. The analog specification, it's 1000 TVL line camera, very low latency, super wide dynamic range with support for on-screen display menu, day and night, PAL, NTSC switchable, 16:9:43 switchable. And then in the digital specifications you have 720p, 60 frames a second, 32 milliseconds latency with a 16:9 image. And that's the really weird thing about this. The camera that you get in this kit, and this unboxing, it does feel very much like a DJI style piece of equipment. You see we have the antenna holder, we have the same antenna that if you have other versions of this kit with different cameras will look very familiar. Interestingly, mine isn't connected, so I'm going to have to pop that on. And then as you take the camera out, it initially looks like you've got an analog camera, but then you've got the little cable that goes in to the air unit. Now, where the cable connects to is actually the bottom of the camera. So the camera itself is very, very similar to good old-fashioned analog cameras in the same form factor. Then you have a bag of bits, or loads of cables, which look like analog cables, and then you also have a 6-pin connector, which is the one that you would use to connect it and solder it up to a flight controller, and you have a little joystick board in here as well. And that's the funky part of this. The camera is available separately, and as well as having the analog connectors on the top, if you take the two screws off the back and remove the plastic backing, then there is the snap-on connector for the digital HD out. Now I've been playing with it here just to see what it is like, and surprise surprise it works very similarly to the other DJI air unit lights that I've got here from people like Cadix and others. And I do like the fact that there is a slightly wider field of view. Now the lens on this camera is a little bit different from the standard one. It's about 1.8mm, and that does result in a slightly wider field of view. And it's also only 16:9 in digital mode. But it's the difference in the image that is quite striking from this new camera. Now this is what it looks like, and it looks pretty good. However, if I reduce the size of this, and apologies for the ducks looking for breakfast in the far side of the garden, if I shrink this image down and put the image next to it from a regular DJI camera, you can see that the handling of the image is very, very different. The color saturation, the way the sky's been exposed is completely different. It's far more natural on the right hand side when compared to the Eachine camera on the left hand side. In fact, that looks more like an FPV racing camera than it does a high definition camera that you'd expect to see on something like the DJI system. The quality I don't think is as good as the other camera, and I guess that's one of the slight sacrifices you make for the slightly cheaper price of this particular kit. But I'm very pleased to see other camera manufacturers getting involved and starting to produce cameras that are compatible. The other thing I like is this camera is also available to buy separately. So if you maybe destroy your camera, or maybe you do want that wider field of view over the standard camera, then you can just buy this and plug it into your unit. The analog settings on this don't affect the way it performs as a HD camera. Those settings are still accessed and changed via the menu within the DJI goggles themselves. So it's kind of interesting to see a camera that's got both connectors on the back. A couple of things to be aware of. The unit came with almost the latest firmware. I did still have to plug it in and activate the air unit to get it all working. No cables for soldered on mine, so I had to solder a little flying lead in order to power it. So you definitely need a bit of soldering skills if you're going to use an air unit light, but that's not any news, is it? And the HD digital, as I said, is only in this camera limited to 16:9 720p 60 frames a second. So if that's the view that you want, then you'll be very happy. The only question that I've got with this is, why would you want a camera that did analog and digital? It's an interesting idea. I guess if you wanted to and you were going to invest in the digital stuff later on, but you hadn't got the pennies now, you could buy this camera instead and maybe use it as an analog camera. But there's loads of analog cameras around. The real interest for me in this is the fact that it's another camera that supports the DJI digital system. So I'll put links below so you can have a look at this. Maybe it's something to consider if you're getting into flying fixed wing with the HD system. I do that a lot and it's spectacular. And I'm going to put this unit to the side because you're going to see this again. This is going to be involved in another build, a fixed wing build, something that I can't talk about yet that's going to be a lot of fun. The only other thing I'll mention is I got the one with a shorter lead. I would definitely get the one with a longer lead. This air unit is going to have to be very, very close to the camera. In the nose of a plane, you can probably get away with it, but trying to fit it into something like a quadcopter over the weekend, I just couldn't get that to work. So I would probably, unless you're really happy with the shorter lead, I'd invest in the longer version of the kit. Thank you for watching my video and watching right to the very end. If you want to find out what I'm currently working on, you can follow me on social media by searching for Painless360 in the usual places. If you'd like to become part of the inner circle, then you can become a Patreon. Details are in the description and you get lots of additional benefits. Check out the playlist section on the channel too. I organise all of my videos into playlists and it's called something like Introduction to or for Beginners. All of the content is aimed so that you can start at the very beginning and it teaches you that subject, starting with simple principles and moving up to teach you everything you need to know.